foxes and hens, hens and foxes. Why is Jesus talking about hens and foxes? Is this Old MacDonald's farm? Is Jesus now into petting zoos? I mean, let's face it, this image that we get today from our gospel from Luke is a pretty weird image. It seems to tie both to what's happened in the past and what's about to happen in the future. But if it did one thing, it got me to think about a few things. I grew up with my grandmother just across a big field from my house. And she had a stroke early in life. So for much of my memory, she could not walk without help. But the very first memory, one of the very first memories I have, the one lodged way back in the vault, is walking with her, holding her hand, side by side through her backyard, gathering eggs from a chicken coop. Warm feathers, soft clucks and coos. Soft clucks and coos that amped up in volume the closer we got. Are we friend or foe? These sitting hens may have thought. What could be more vulnerable than a sitting hen? The other thing I have been thinking about is the phrase, "There's a fox in the hen house." So, I wanted to be clear about what that saying meant, check my facts, so to speak. And this is the definition that came up. A fox in the hen house is when someone untrustworthy is placed in a position of trust in which they will be harmful, damaging, or detrimental for their own good. A fox in the hen house. If this sounds familiar, if it resonates somehow, then you find good company in Jesus of Nazareth. He is making his way to Jerusalem. And here in the church, you and I have been at Lent for about 2 weeks. And in the last 2 weeks, we've had ashes put on our foreheads. We've wandered with Jesus through the desert, who was tempted by Satan himself. And now we've got a fox, a sneaky, scheming, power-hungry fox named Herod. Now, some folks run up to Jesus and they say, "Hey, Jesus, you better watch your back. Herod is after you." And Jesus, cool as ever, he says, you go and tell that fox that I am busy. I am healing. I am curing. I am casting out demons. I've got work to do. I'm going to Jerusalem, and I'm not stopping. Jesus is not scared of Herod. But then he switches gears, if you notice. Jesus doesn't talk about fighting fire with fire. He doesn't call for a rebellion. Instead, he puts out just one more image. Jesus says, "How often I have longed to gather you together, like a mother hen gathers her chicks under her wings." How long? How I've longed. I have desired, Jesus says. So why is Jesus talking about foxes and hens? Well, because they're not exactly on equal playing fields. A hen versus a fox? Come on, that's not a fair fight. Foxes are fast, they're ruthless, and they're cunning. Hens, not exactly terrifying. But here's the thing. A mother hen does not fight with fangs and claws. A mother hen fights with love. She fights by throwing herself over her chicks, covering them with her wings, and shielding them with her own life. And man, does that land for me. Because right now I look around and I see a world full of foxes. Power-hungry, self-serving, destructive. I see people getting trampled, the vulnerable being devoured, peace getting ripped to shreds. And I think I remember there's another phrase in Luke about the powerful devouring widows' houses. And yet, I also see people stepping in to shield others. With their fierceness, I see teachers looking out for students. I see fierce mama hens standing up for their trans kids. And I see friends checking in on other friends who are drowning in stress. Foxes are real, but so are the hens. And even more real is the hen's desire, the desire to gather us all. To gather us all. Think about that. Now, in our narrative today, Jesus is responding to something that's happened earlier on in the chapter. The leaders are discussing who is in and who is out. Earlier in this chapter, Jesus was having a discussion with some folks, and they asked, will only a few be saved? There was discussion of those who had sinned worse than others, as if there are amateur sinners and professional sinners. So let's just think about it. Don't right now, but I'd like all the amateur sinners to raise their hands. How about the professional expert sinners? That's ridiculous, isn't it? Now that you see it and think about it. Folks, there's no such thing as worse sinners. And what our season is about is laying out for us, explaining to us that we are all in need of God's grace, of God's holding, of God's protection. And the good news of this passage is that Jesus is comparing himself to this mother hen, to this fierce one. And Jesus has always desired to gather us all. And that's where we are today. How amazing that Jesus still desires this. All of us. The good, the bad, the poor, the rich, the bold, the beautiful, the humble and the meek. The people you like and the people you don't like. The foxes, the thieves, the war-hungry, those who share our opinions and those who disagree with us. Those who are on the same page and those reading from an entirely different script. All of us. One commentator reminds us that Jesus sees all of us as barnyard chicks lost in a storm. And you know, sometimes we can be so stubborn that we don't seek shelter. And there are times when we can be so frightened that we can't find it. Yet this is still Jesus' desire. And listen, where does the church speak up and show up in all of this? I think about that a lot. And I know that some of us have walked into church today with different ideas of what we need from the church right now. We all come expecting the church to be something or do something. Some of us want the church to call for action. And some of us just want sanctuary, a place to escape, if only for a few moments, the chaos of the world. And I hear you, all of you. Some of us came here today because we're exhausted. And some of us have come here today because we're angry. But I hear you, all of you. But here's the truth. We are both the mother hen and the frightened chick. At the same time, it's okay to be both. We can be both frightened and fierce. Sometimes we're the one standing strong, wings stretched wide, saying, "Not on my watch." And sometimes we're the ones tucking ourselves under those wings, desperate for shelter. And that's okay. We are both. And the church is the space in which we can hold both and be both without feeling judged. Foxes and hens, hens and foxes. Why is Jesus talking about hens and foxes? Well, I think it's becoming clearer to me, at least. I hope it might be for you. Because when the fox gets into the hen house, there is chaos. But only the hen can show empathy and compassion and love and understanding. And yes, even justice. Only the hen is willing to die to protect her beloved. So you stand back, you old fox, because you ain't seen nothing like a mad mama hen. How I have longed to gather you, all of you. And this is exactly what Jesus is doing. This is what this journey is about that he began, moving toward Jerusalem. He's heading straight for Jerusalem, straight for the cross, and that's where it's going to happen. How I have longed to gather you. In Jerusalem, he will spread his wings wide, 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 and gather us all in. So yeah, there are foxes, and there is fear, but always remember that there is a mother hen who refuses to leave you behind. Jesus. So when you come up for communion today to receive the sacraments or to receive a blessing, please feel free to bring your most fierce self and your most vulnerable self. And know this: you belong here, you are held here, and you're covered here. Vulnerable, maybe. Searching and scared, probably. Loved, absolutely.